I want to get started with Eric Adams. So when Eric Adams announced that he was running for mayor of New York City, I was heavily opposed to it. I did not think that Eric Adams would be good for New York City, having lived in New York City. And one of the things that I predicted that he would do, he has done, and that is ramp up the police state. I predicted he would do that. I predicted he would give the NYPD more funding. He has done that. He's criminalizing homeless people in New York City. He's become everything that I said that he would become as mayor. Well, apparently, Eric Adams is now under investigation, and it actually goes back to that campaign. Let's go ahead and get into this article, and then we'll jump into the video. FBI examining whether Eric Adams cleared red tape for the Turkish government. Oh boy. Oh snap. We're going to get into this. Federal authorities are investigating whether Mayor Eric Adams, weeks before his election 2 years ago, pressured the New York Fire Department officials to sign off on the Turkish government's new high-rise consulate in Manhattan, despite safety concerns with the building. 3 people with the knowledge of the matter said. So obviously, this is a building that had safety issues, and they're saying that Eric Adams basically pressured the NYFD to sign off on this. After winning the Democratic mayoral primary in July, Mr. Adams contacted the fire commissioner, Daniel A. Negro, interesting name, in late summer 2021 and urged him to allow the Turkish government to occupy the building, at least on a temporary basis. The building had yet to open because the building, at least on a, oh, whoops, I said that right. The building had yet to open because fire officials had cited safety issues and declined to sign off on its occupancy, the people said. I want to tell you something about fire inspections. New York and Boston, I've noticed this. Sometimes certain landlords or developers, they will try to skate by like the fire inspections. Now in Boston, by law, you're supposed to have a fire inspection of at least the residential buildings once a year. You're supposed to, but not everybody does it. Sometimes I've had a landlord before that never did it. I've had landlords that did do it. But if you want someone to come for you in reference to real estate and not handling things properly, the fire department, they're not the ones. They do not play around. The unusual intervention by Mayor Adams is being examined as part of a broader public corruption investigation by the FBI and federal prosecutors in Manhattan that led to the seizure of the mayor's electronic devices by federal agents early last week. The FBI has been asking top fire department officials about Mr. Adams' role in the matter since the spring. Mr. Adams' intervention paved the way for the Turkish president, whose fondness for massive building projects was well known in Turkey, to preside over the grand opening of a 300 million 35-story tower on his September 2021 visit to New York for the UN General Assembly. Despite numerous flaws in its fire safety system, according to people familiar with the matter in city records, the skyscraper in the center of New York City reflected Turkey's increased power. Now, that was coming from the Turkish president. The federal criminal inquiry has focused, at least in part, on whether Mr. Adams' 2021 campaign conspired with the Turkish government, including its consulate general in New York, to illegally funnel foreign money into its coffers, according to a search warrant obtained by the New York Times for an FBI search this month of the home of the mayor's chief fundraiser. This is not good. So here you have Mayor Adams. Looks looks like he's illegally working with the foreign entity. Now, I'm waiting to see if Democrat politicians in New York are going to call this out, because you know how people protect their party. Now, I want to go to this clip from CNN where they discuss this matter again. Eric Adams, his devices, electronic devices, have been seized. They will be reviewed. I sincerely hope for his sake there's nothing on those devices, like any emails, I don't know, that will point to his behavior and his involvement with this. But my question is, if he is guilty, and I don't trust Eric Adams, so I wouldn't be surprised if he is, he's corrupt. But if he is guilty, what happens in reference to his mayor seat in New York City? Let's go ahead and get into this clip here from CNN as they discuss this matter as well.
Breaking news just in, with a source confirming to CNN that the FBI has seized New York City Mayor Eric Adams' phones and an iPad of his in part of its federal corruption investigation. All of this is coming mere days after his chief campaign fundraiser had her home raided by FBI agents as well. I want to bring in CNN's Polo Sandoval, who is covering all of this. This is a really dramatic escalation of this probe.
Dramatic, and I can't say it enough, significant escalation and a significant development in this investigation, as we've now learned, according to reporting from our colleague Kara Scannell, citing a source, a person familiar with this ongoing investigation, that New York City Mayor Eric Adams' phone and also an iPad seized by federal investigators as they continue to probe that fundraising investigation, as you just mentioned a short while ago. I want to get straight to what we have heard directly from Mayor Adams himself. In a statement that was released to CNN by his campaign attorney spokesperson, Boyd Johnson, in fact, we have that. We're able to put that up on the screen so you can follow along here, as they have responded to this latest news, saying, as a former member of law enforcement, I expect all members of my staff to follow the law and fully cooperate with any sort of investigation, and I will continue to do exactly that. Quote, I have nothing to hide. Again, these are the words of Mayor Eric Adams through a spokesperson. And as you mentioned, this development coming on the heels of what we just recently learned in the FBI raid of New York City Mayor Adams's chief fundraiser, as they continue to look, determine whether or not his 2021 campaign fundraising potentially received some of these foreign funds with through a Brooklyn-based construction company to potentially funnel foreign money into his campaign. So a lot of...
Let me pause here for just a second. So how is this any different from the accusation against Joe Biden accepting foreign money? So we're seeing a lot of corruption being exposed, whether it's the Democratic Party, whether it's the Republican Party. This year, we're seeing a lot of that. And another thing that I want to point out, I want to be very clear. Eric Adams is a former NYPD officer, former police officer. Now, some people will look at this and they'll say, oh, come on, he didn't break the law. He used to be a cop. I would look at that and say, he used to be a cop. He probably broke the law. Police officers also corrupt. Let's continue.
Questions right now about what the mayor did know, or potentially did not know, as this latest development comes to light here.
Yeah, and I mean, the New York Times says that essentially the FBI agents approached him on the street, and that's when they notified him that they had this court-ordered subpoena warrant to get his phones, to get his iPad, that they returned them a few days later, the New York Times says. But all of this is part of that wide-ranging investigation. Clearly, I mean, it's a lot more serious than we thought. He's a former member of law enforcement, as you noted there, but he's saying that he still is maintaining he didn't do anything wrong, that he's not accused of anything.
He's still...
Did you hear what Caitlin just said? He's a former member of law enforcement. To that I say, so what, Caitlin? Former employees of law enforcement can't be corrupt. Current employees of law enforcement can't be corrupt. We have corrupt presidents. Joe Biden is corrupt. Donald Trump is corrupt. Barack Obama is corrupt. Bill Clinton is corrupt. George W. Bush is corrupt. What are you talking about? Just because someone has a certain position or they hold a certain position we should basically dismiss the fact that they could be involved in any type of corruption. This is too much.
Maintains his innocence, and we have heard him repeat. We have heard from him a couple of times already, especially after that latest development. At least what came to light in the last few days, and that scene that's laid out in that New York Times reporting, it really is just incredible. This idea of federal agents approaching the mayor of America's largest city and then requesting to get their hands on these documents. So again, it cannot be said enough, and we can't underscore it enough. This is a significant development with a lot more to come.
And so what if
not only that, but they approached him on the street. Have you guys ever seen like those TV shows or movies where there's a scene where someone's being served papers like, you know, are you so-and-so? Who wants to know? You've been served. You ever seen that when they approach people on the street? I always thought like that just happened like in the movies or TV shows. Apparently, no, they do this in real life as well, because Eric Adams was approached on the street.
happened, it was November 2nd, I believe, that was when his chief fundraiser, who's young, she's only 25 years old, I believe, had her home searched by the FBI. They took some devices there. What's at the heart of this investigation that we do know? So
what we can say is that law enforcement officials were familiar with the search warrants and previously told CNN that the investigators, they're specifically looking into evidence that foreign nationals who are actually barred from making any campaign contributions may have, in essence, bundled some of these donations going into New York's Turkish American communities and then getting U.S. citizens of Turkish origin, the basically act as straw contributors. Now we have reached out to various stakeholders in this investigation, waiting to hear back.
I want to make the connection here between this situation with Eric Adams and corporate money in electoral politics. You see, if we had free public financing of elections in this country, this wouldn't even be an issue. That's not to excuse Eric Adams, but that's how you could weed out the corruption in electoral politics. Get rid of the corporate money and just make public elections free. Free financing of it. Just something to point out.
Hello, Sandoval, a dramatic escalation. Thank you for that reporting. Our panel is here with me. And Emily, obviously you are a well-sourced New York reporter. I mean, this is the first time that we've seen this probe get this close and directly touch the mayor.
Exactly. And the New York Times in its reporting calls it a dramatic escalation of this investigation into the mayor's campaign. And as you said earlier this week, he was approached by federal agents who asked his security detail to step aside and seized his electronic devices. This happened just a couple days after his chief fundraiser's home in Brooklyn was raided and documents were taken pertaining to his campaign and its fundraising.
And have we seen Mayor Adams this week? I mean, has he indicated publicly at all that this happened?
He didn't. This happened earlier this week, I believe on Monday, according to the reporting. He had no public events on Tuesday, just closed-door meetings and calls, his team told me, as usual. And then he did his weekly off-topic news conference, addressing reporters in the press corps on Wednesday, taking questions on every topic that we would want to ask, and said nothing about this incident.
That's really remarkable. I mean, we have heard from him.
No, it's not remarkable, Caitlin. So she told Caitlin, she said, yeah, he said nothing about this incident. And Caitlin goes, that's really remarkable. No, it's not. Usually, especially if you're guilty of something, whether you're a politician or not, you're going to try to hide that or keep that low as long as you can, right? Until it's exposed. You're going to try to keep that undercover and keep it hush. It's not a remarkable thing, Caitlin.
Now he's putting out a statement saying that he feels like he has nothing to hide. And one thing he said, Joe, he said, quote, I expect all members of my staff to follow the law. It's not just his staff. He is also himself now directly involved in this. We don't know that he's done anything wrong, but certainly this is very close to him.
Well, look, I think that we should caution and remind people that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. A probe is not necessarily indicative of any guilt. Yeah. But I do think that the actions of the president or the mayor, absent of his words, are a little bit different. So if you look at what happened, he basically turning around from DC to basically get home, as they say in politics, to figure out what they're going to do. It appears he may have known that this was coming, or there was some escalation was coming. So look, we have to let the facts bear out wherever they go. But I do think that certainly it's troubling when you have the mayor of New York City in the midst of a migrant crisis, in the midst of an economic crisis, suddenly have to worry about his own fiscal house of order, so to speak.
Yeah.
That would be Eric Adams' fault, though. It's Eric Adams' fault that he has to worry about this issue, not like that's not on anyone else. That's on him. And I'm pretty sure, like I said, if they seized his phone and his iPad, they had enough information to work with to do that. So it does not look good for Eric Adams. And there goes his chances of running for president. At one point, he was entertaining that. So there goes those chances of him running for a higher office. But there have been other corrupt mayors in this country. We have to remember Marion Barry from DC. Remember that whole debacle. He was arrested, drug charges, etc. But then he got out of jail, and then people reelected him in DC even after that. So this is not anything new. I don't know why they're trying to make it sound like this is shocking or whatever, because it's the mayor of the largest city, et cetera. These things do happen. Like I said, a lot of politicians are corrupt.
Well, and potentially criminal exposure. I mean, Michael, the day that his campaign fundraiser, the chief campaign fundraiser's house was raided, that was the day he was supposed to go to Washington. He's supposed to have all these meetings at the White House. He instead canceled those. How big of a concern is this for Democrats here? And of course, innocent until proven guilty, obviously. He hasn't been charged or accused of anything. How big of a concern is this, though?
Well,
I think that's funny that Eric Adams was supposed to actually have a meeting at the White House with Joe Biden. So it would have been two criminals at a table. Start off the joke with two criminals walk into the White House. What are their roles and positions in the United States? One is the president, one is the mayor.
with little information we have, I don't want to write the guy's political obituary, but his statement was strong. It seems confident that he, at least maybe he might not even know he's committed a crime himself.
Get out of here. Let me tell you something about Michael, okay? Michael LaRosa, he was on Rising. I was on a segment of Rising with this guy, and he was trying to make excuses for Joe Biden and propping up Joe Biden, et cetera. So you got to know where he comes from. Former press secretary of First Lady Jill Biden, right? So that was his title. So now this guy is trying to say maybe Eric Adams didn't realize what he did was a crime. He was a cop, Michael. Like, this is Michael. He comes in to run cover for the Democratic Party. This man was a police officer. Give me a break. You think he didn't know that? Especially as mayor? Oh, man.
So what I would advise the team over there would be to tell everything you know, tell it early, and tell it yourself. Because the last thing you want is drip, drip, drip of information coming out like we've seen with other politicians.
Yeah, I mean, it's a major concern. How does he typically respond to, I mean, you've seen the mayor, he has a lot of bravado. We've interviewed him multiple times here at CNN. How has he been responding as these developments have slowly been happening in this investigation?
Well, he's been insistent and consistent in that he's cooperating with the probe, that he himself, as a retired NYPD captain, is a law enforcement official and will help law enforcement in turn. And he maintains that he hasn't been charged, he hasn't been accused of wrongdoing, which is true, nor has Brianna Suggs, his chief fundraiser, who's 25 years old, in charge of the millions that are poured into his campaign. But the allegations, as uncovered by the New York Times, that obtained part of that search warrant are pretty serious. The campaign is under investigation, apparently, for allegedly conspiring with the Turkish government to funnel illegal donations into his campaign. It is not legal to take foreign contributions if you're an American politician. And New York City has a very generous matching funds program. And if you leverage some of the donations locally the right way, you can get more public financing dollars for your campaign.
Breaking news.
Of course, it's not legal to take money from foreign entities for a campaign, and it's really funny because I felt like towards the end of that statement, she was offering advice to Eric Adams or whatever, as if Eric Adams doesn't know this. Eric Adams knows this. Like when you run for office, all of this information, the rules, the procedures, what you're allowed to do in reference to donations and all of those things, all of that is explained to you as a candidate. Like he knows this. Mayor Adams knows this, but that's CNN again trying to run cover for the Democratic Party, but it does not look good for Eric. It does not look good. Oh my God. The Oracle said this is happening because he criticized the Biden administration's handling of the immigration problem. Oh, he did do that. That's right. That's probably what the meeting was. The meeting that he was supposed to attend at the White House with Joe Biden. That's probably what that meeting was about. The immigration issue. Delthea says, you don't have to blackmail Adams. He bribes real easy. Thank you so much, Sean, for the super sticker. Oh my God, that guy is, what a mess. What a mess.